All right, welcome. Week 13 DraftKings. We got another millionaire maker on the board, and it's a $27 entry, 93,000 entrance. Same as last week. It's looking good. Going for that $1 million again. If you didn't do well last week, look, it happens. Not all my lineups hit. Had a few that scored in the money, but those are few and far between. You have to have a short-term memory in this game and move on as long as you're not wagering more than you can afford. Let's do it again this week. So last week, my most successful stack was Tannehill to Landry. Week after week, it just shows you don't need a top-tier quarterback to win this game. You can win with guys like Mettenberger. You can win with guys like Tannehill. You can win with guys like Matt Ryan. It's just the right week, the right matchup, and the right player coming through for you. So this week, we're going to look at some of those guys. There are definitely some top-tier quarterbacks that you can win with. Guys like Andrew Luck this week. Guys like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. But you have to select your guys according to what you think the field's going to do, right? So if you think that the field's going to be all over the New England-Green Bay game and you have a Rodgers or a Brady, that means that you're going to be level with everyone else. But if you're selecting a guy that's off the cuff, a contrarian play, you have a better chance of overcoming those other players that are all going to be at the same point level because they're selecting the same players. So this week, the format, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few picks I like at each position and talk a little bit about why I like those players and some other players you can potentially swap in there. So let's get started. And here we go. Okay, so quarterback position. Andrew Luck is one of those guys you talk about, tier one quarterback with a nice over-under, top three over-under the week going up against the poorest Washington. If you were going to take a top-tier guy, I would go up to Andrew Luck. I like the stack once again with T.Y. Hilton. He hits it every week. Kobe Fleener did not come through with the absence of Brown last week, or Dwayne Allen, but I think that he does this week. So I would like Andrew Luck, Hilton, Fleener stack. I think that's a good play in this tournament. I think few people are going to pay up, and so it will be a bit of a pay up to contrarian play. I do have some Andrew Luck in my lineups. Manning's a solid choice as always, but I'm going to get some better value down below. Like I said, Rodgers and Brady are up there. I'm going to fade this game because so many people are going to be on this game. Everyone's going to be going after these players. It's the highest over-under of the week. It's a huge over-under, 58.5. There's going to be points to score here. The only player I would go with in this game is Gronkowski at tight end. He's the only one I'm fitting in. That could be to my detriment, but we'll see. So many people are going to be on these teams that it's going to be hard to find an advantage there. I do like Breeze a lot. I like this New Orleans-Pittsburgh game. It's the second highest over-under of the week. But if I'm going in that game, I'm going to take Roethlisberger. They're going up against a worse secondary in the Saints, and you save a lot of money for probably a similar production. So I definitely have some Roethlisberger in my lineups. I spoke about Tannehill. I'm not going to fade him this week. I like him again against the Jets. Terrible secondary. With Landry coming on, you have to keep an eye on Charles Clay, whether he's going to play this week, but it looks like he is. Mike Wallace is going to play. I like Tannehill in this lineup. He gives you points, and he's a nice value pick at 6,900. But for this lineup, I'm actually going to go down a little bit lower. I like the Mettenberger, but for $100 more, I'm going to go with Matt Ryan. And here's why. They're going up against a tough Arizona defense. They are at home. Matt Ryan plays a lot better at home, and there is no chance they're going to be able to rush against Arizona, and I mean zero. So what does that mean? That means that Matt Ryan's going to put up 45 to 50 pass attempts. And with Roddy White hurt, not playing all week, I see him in there as more of a decoy. We've seen this game before from Roddy, and he's told us as himself, don't play me if I don't practice all week, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to play Roddy White. I see Julio Jones getting a lot of coverage from the number one Peterson, the number one cornerback on Arizona. He's been playing lights out last couple weeks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack him with a Harry Douglas, okay? Harry Douglas hasn't been doing much, but he's a bona fide number two receiver. He stepped in the number one position last year when both guys were hurt, White and Julio. And he got about 30 plus, 35 snaps last week. I see his snap count going up tremendously. And he's at a $3,000 base salary. Few people are going to be on Harry Douglas, and that makes for a good GPP play. Opens up a ton of cap space. You could potentially move Hester into this position. He's also at a $3,000 range. While Hester doesn't get the amount of snaps that Douglas gets, he gets more red zone looks. He also gets punt duties, kickoff duties. So he's a play that could potentially turn a touchdown on a special teams as well. So either of those I like. Ryan's going to get sacked. He's going to get pressured. So I think the quick routes are going to be where he's going to go. Douglas on quick slants. They like the wide receiver screen at the line of scrimmage with Julio and Douglas. So I think you'll see a lot of that, which is essentially a running play. So I really like this stack this week. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on them. And if Douglas shows up like Landry did last week, you're going to have a nice little point total to start with. All right, at the running back position. Look, Foster is matchup proof, and he's going up against a terrible Tennessee rush defense. He's back in the game. You know he's going to get 20-plus carries. You know he's going to catch balls out of the backfield. I really like Foster this week. Le'Veon Bell as well is another solid play. Pittsburgh's committed to Le'Veon. I actually like these top three. I don't care that Charles is going up against Denver. He gets his. I really like this play. And C.J. Anderson, I mean, there are a lot of good picks this week, okay? A lot of high over-unders. Rashad Jennings is okay. Jacksonville is not as bad as people think he is. In this running back position, I took a low-salaried guy like Douglas so I could fit in a big guy, a number one, and I'm gonna take Aaron Foster. He's just money in the bank. You know what you're gonna get. I know I'm gonna get 25-plus points, and a lot of people might not pay up for him. So there are a lot of solid options down here. Denard Robinson is another option I really like this week. The Colts backfield is really interesting, okay? Herron is coming off the practice squad, and now he's starting this week. He fumbled in the red zone. He also had a bad touch with Andrew Luck, but this week we know Ahmad Bradshaw was the highest touched running back in the red zone, and I see Herron taking on that. Sure, Richardson's going to hawk a TD, but you know Herron's going to get 10 to 15 touches, and I see him getting in the end zone, even against a tough Washington defense. So a number of people won't be on him, and that makes for a good contrarian play. He's not too expensive. He's definitely an interesting play at the running back position. Andre Ellington is another really interesting play. He had a terrible week last week, and that's exactly what you want coming into a GPP tourney. You have Ellington, who got something like 11 touches for 24 yards last week, but he was playing against Seattle, and Seattle's been killing it. And they're going up against Atlanta. And with Atlanta, it's just a matter of who's going to get the touchdowns. Is it going to be the wide receivers, or is it going to be the running backs? And this week, it very well could be Ellington. Coming off a rough game, you hope that people aren't going to be on him, so I like that play a lot as well. A lot of really good options at running back this week. I actually like running back position a lot more than some of the others. Trey Mason. Look, Trey Mason did not do well last week, but he continues to get his touches, and that's what you want in a running back. This week he's going against Oakland. Awful defense in Oakland. You know Mason's going to get his touches at home. I really like this play. Mason on the running back position. So I'm going to plug him in, 4,600. He's the number one running back, potential for 20-plus carries. There's nothing more I want to see there. All right, moving over to the defensive position. A number of options this week. I really like this middle ground right here. I think people are going to be on Cardinals. They're going to get a lot of pressure. They're going to get some turnovers. But Atlanta's going to put up some points. I don't see Atlanta putting up a dud at home. So I'm going to fade them a bit, and I'm going to move down to these three right here. So the Colts I like. It's a high over-under, but I see most of that scoring coming from Indianapolis. When Indy gets ahead, they're going to start to pressure the quarterback. You've got Colt McCoy starting. There's a reason he's a backup quarterback in this league. Indianapolis is going to get some turnovers. He has the formula. They have the formula at home. They're favorites at home. That's what you want from a defense. 3,200, I'll gladly pay that amount. Same situation with the Rams at home against an awful Oakland offense. St. Louis has been really turning up the heat, getting a lot of sacks. You can definitely see some sack fumbles against Carr at home. Oakland allows a lot of sacks, so that's a great game for the picking. For this lineup, though, I'm going to take the Dolphins. They're going up against the Jets. They are not at home, which is – you don't normally want to see that, but they're a veteran team. They're really strong, and they've got the matchup to stop the Jets and force some turnovers. One, Geno Smith is starting. We've seen what he does. He puts up 2 interceptions a game, automatic, and Miami's a tough defense. They didn't play well last week, and I see a really big bounce-back week for them. Finnegan's out, but I mean, overall, they have a lot of defensive touchdowns. They do it away, so that's something good you want to look at. They're always putting up points, whether they're home or away, and they're going to stop the run. And then what do you have? You have Geno Smith throwing. So I really like the Dolphins there in that position, but I think you could plug and play any of these right here, and I think you'll be in good shape. Okay, to the wide receiver position. This week I'm going to be paying up. Okay, I love Antonio Brown. High over-under. He's a clear-cut number one. It doesn't get any more number one than Antonio Brown. He gets his targets. Every week he's in double-digit targets. Last week he got 11 targets, secured 9 of those, 91 yards and a touchdown. And he actually had another touchdown in the last minutes of the game that him and Roethlisberger just totally miscommunicated on, and Roethlisberger underthrew him. That could have very easily been a 2 TD day. I do think he's going to be heavily owned, but I don't care. He's going to put up points, and I know what I'm going to get from him. And I've freed up some space for some lower price guys, and I can fit him in. A lot of people are going to be on Beckham, and he very well may perform, but I'm fading him this week. When everyone's talking about a player, you know he's going to be heavily, heavily owned. And Jacksonville is not the worst defense in the world. So there's a chance that he doesn't put up the big numbers that warrants the percentage usage there. So some other guys I really like this week. Torrey Smith continues to get no love. Okay, he last week put up 98 yards, 5 receptions. He didn't get in the end zone, but I like him getting in the end zone this week. He's the number 1 wide receiver on the Baltimore Ravens. That's clear cut. So paying $5,500 for a number 1 wide receiver, I'll do that all day. I'm not fading Landry. I actually like him again this week. I just think he's the most explosive player on that team at this point. Tannehill's looking to him, and I also like Landry in a couple of my lineups. A guy that didn't pan out for me last week was Hearns. And he's a big play guy, and he can also lay out some pure duds. He didn't score anything last week, but this is the type of game where I think he bounces back. Okay, the New York Giants have a terrible secondary, and I think they can't rush the quarterback. And I think Bortles has a bit of a bounce back game. He's going to turn the ball over, but we know if they're behind, and the Giants offense has been clicking, if they're behind, they're going to throw the ball. And I think Hearns is that big play potential. I do like Cecil Shorts on some short crossing routes, and he does put up some nice reception numbers in this PPR league. That's important. But Hearns is the guy that's been pulling down the touchdowns and can put up those 2 touchdown games. So I do like Hearns as an option for a low salary to free up some cap space. But for me, I'm going with Antonio Brown. And then lastly, I'm going to give you a tight end pick. I really like Gronkowski if you can fit him in. Jimmy Graham is another strong play this week against the Pittsburgh defense, a high over-under. But teams have really been owning in on Jimmy Graham, and even so, he still put up 2 touchdowns last week, but everyone's really concentrating on Jimmy Graham, especially with Cooks out. So I look for some of those other guys, some better values out there. But I can't blame you if you go for Gronk or Graham. Fleener's another guy I spoke about that I like bouncing back. But this week for me, I'm going with Travis Kelce. He might be a bit of a pick for a percentage of people, but I don't think it's going to be as high as it should be. Fasano's back. He stole a touchdown last week. But Kelce's their best pass option. He gets targets. He had 4 or 5 targets, 67 yards. This week against Denver, they're going to have to throw a ton. I see him getting his and potentially pulling down a touchdown this week. At his salary, I like his value. And so that leaves you with $5,600 average per player. You get to pick a wide receiver and a flex position. Like I said, in my flex, I'm going with a lot of running back this week. I really like the running back position. I think there's a ton of value there. But anyway, I hope this gives you a good starting point, some players to think about. And once again, I wish you the best. Hope you're one of the millionaires this week. Take care. FantasyFootballMoneyLeague.com.